Hello, everyone. My name is Paul. This video is going to be if you need a refresher on Java programming, or you aren't feeling very comfortable with Java programming, or you just want a walkthrough on how to get some Java programming or a refresher, as well as a little bit about IntelliJ IDEA. So my hope for this video is that you would have this video on like one screen or one side of the screen, and then use your IDE, preferably IntelliJ IDEA, on the other side and follow along with what I'm doing. So we're going to open up our IDE. It's going to have my old class in there. So this is where you're going to have some recent projects. And this was, the IDE is pretty smart, and that obviously doesn't exist anymore, which is why it's giving me that error, but you have the option to remove these from path or open them or whatever. So there's where you'll find your recent projects. So to make a new project, we're going to click on new project, give it a second to load, and then you'll have some build options over here to the left. Don't worry about those for now. Just you want to build through Java, just a basic one. And then obviously this is going to be your JDK version. I'm using 11.0.2 since I'm using that for another class. Just hit next. Don't worry about this page for now. And then want to make a new, give your project a name. So this software is going to be a management system for like a game master to manage their player information, I guess. Really very basic. It'll just have like a player health, and then it can make player attacks using a randomized dice roll, and then also store that dice roll in the turn that occurred, as well as if a player uses an item and at what turn they use that item, as well as the item name. And then we'll have a semi-algorithmic option as well to find the highest roll that a player has made. So I'm going to call this GM list, or yeah, I'll call it GM menu list. Combine those two. You just want to make your name something that should tell the user about your program, or at the minimum should tell you about your program. And this is what your project will look like when you open it. So there's my project name up there and the same. And then my source folder is where I'm going to want to put my packages and classes and all my files. So we're going to do that. And for this software, I'm going to create 2 different packages just to show you guys what those are and how to use them. I probably wouldn't normally, because it'll be a pretty small system, but in real life systems, classes or softwares can be hundreds of classes. So packages are used to organize classes and interfaces and files into something that generally serves like a purpose. So for this class, right, I guess as an example, in SCR 216, we made a checkers game, and we were asked to make a few different packages, one for the core, which handled the game logic, and then one for the UI, which handled the UI. So same system here. I'm going to make, all I did there was I just right clicked on source. I'm going to make new package, and I'm going to call it core and new package UI. There we go. So what this is going to do, or what this is going to allow us, is now we can build our program using packages to separate out the functionality. So I'm going to put anything that has to do with core here, anything that has to do with the UI here. And like I said, it'll be pretty basic program, so there won't be a lot, but just to show you guys how it's used. So I'm going to make a new class. This is going to be my player class, which is going to store a player as well as all the moves that player will make. And so again, I just right clicked, went to new, and then class, and then I want to make sure I'm making a class, not an interface. And then that should insert a new class under the package folder. Sorry, under the core package. And then I want to do the same thing. Make a new Java class. I'll call it menu UI. And then insert that there. So as you can see, the menu UI got placed into the UI package. And right at the top, you can see that's the package name that this class belongs to. So if I change this to core, since this doesn't actually belong in the core package, it's going to tell me that it's not the right package name. So I need to set its package to the correct name. Okay, so there you go. So that's packages. So I've set up my packages. I think first thing we should do is get a working software just to print some stuff, and then we'll create our menu, list out the options, and then we'll start filling those out from there. So I'm going to take a quick break and then we'll get started on that. Okay, and I should mention, if your class isn't in a package, so if like this class, player class, were just in the source folder, just under source folder, so instead of there being the core packages here and here, I had another class, there would be no package name because it would just be the default package and you don't need that as the package name. So you only need the package name if your class is in a package, which obviously mine are here, but if there was a new one, a class just under source, if I just inserted a new class here, it wouldn't have a package name. So just want to clarify that. Okay, so just to get a really simple working program, let's just do a quick print statement. Oh, and I need a main method. That's why it's giving me the error. Okay, so obviously, yes, I'm gonna have to have some main method that the system's going to run. That should be the first thing you've done. Big mistake on my part. Definitely should be the first thing you should do. So first create your main methods, static void main string array of args. There we go. That's what I was giving me there. So then what I do, and here is where you place any code that you actually want to run. So if I just run this program, which in IntelliJ IDEA, these green arrows are where your IDE is going to be able to recognize what it can run. So it recognizes the main method and then it can run it. So you just want to click run, and it should take a minute to build and compile and execute, and nothing should happen. It should just print like an exit code 0. Yeah. So that tells me that it finished successfully. So if I wanted to just really quickly prove my system is working, let's just print a classic hello world. And take a second to load, and there you go. So there we go. We have a working system. So I know this class is working, excuse me, and I know that I'm able to print stuff. So that being said, let's just go ahead and comment that out. First thing I want to do actually is I want to show you guys how to read input from the user. So what I first want to do in my system is I want to get the number of players that the GM is going to maintain a list for. So please enter the number of players. So that'll print to my console. It'll tell me to enter the number of players. And to read from the console, I'm going to use a scanner object. And there's going to be a few things before I actually get to using it, but I just want to show you guys what will happen if I try to just use it before I do anything. And this is, if you don't know about importing, then that'll make a little more sense to you. So I'm going to use the Java standard scanner class, which obviously anytime you use a class that is in the standard library or even in my own software here, you have to import it, which is why it's telling me, it's giving me, it's highlighting the word is red. It's saying there's some issue. Like I said, this IDE is pretty modern. It'll tell me some issues and some possible resolutions, and it can't resolve symbol scanner, doesn't recognize what that class is. So it's giving me some options, and obviously I'm just going to import the one from the standard library. So just import java util.scanner, and now I can use the scanner object. So I'm going to call it user input, and I'm going to scan from system.in. That's the console. So I've set up my new scanner, and then what I want to do is I want to read an int from the scanner. So first thing I should do is I will make an int. I'll make it as entered. Actually, I'll call it player numbers. And I want to use the scanner object to read the next int. And again, so this IDE is pretty modern, and it will it's really nice in that it fills out things for you and gives you some options. So even before I've even finished typing what I want, it's going to suggest things for you. So obviously USER only corresponds to one thing in my system right now, which is the user input. So it's suggesting that I want to use that. And then when I do the dot operator, again, really nice. It gives me a lot of options and it will actually tell you about them if I click it. So I want to read an int from the user. So I'm going to select this one. Sorry, this one, the next int. And again, very nice. If I highlight over this, it'll give me some information about this method. So it scans the next token of the input as an int. So when I do that, then I want to, let's print the int that I'm going to get from my user. So user entered. And sorry about my typing. It's probably not going to get any better. So I guess sorry in advance. All right, let's save that. Let's run that. And anytime you use the scanner object, it should wait for the user to enter, right? So right here, it's essentially waiting at this line. It's printed out this statement, but it's waiting for me to enter some input. And then when I hit the enter key, it'll fill in the system.in and be read by the scanner. And then obviously this player number will be set to whatever value I put in. So let's just enter 4 and user entered 4. So there we go. We got our scanner working correctly. However, if you're not familiar with the scanner class, you might not see any issues immediately, but I can tell you right now, there is a very large issue when using scanners and parsing through inputs. So what nextInt actually does is it essentially reads up to a new line character and then takes that, but it doesn't flush the new line character. So currently in my console input, there's a new line character right at the front. So if I could draw, I can't, but imagine in my console down here, there's a new line character right here. So if this line right here, or my console, sorry, in my IDE, this were my console, there's a new line character right at the beginning. So the next time I try to read something, it'll read that new line character and it'll think that's a new line. So in fact, what I can do to illustrate this is if I do this. So next line is going to read an entire line. So essentially goes to the new line character and then gives you everything from the start of the line to the new line character, including the new line character. So if I do this, what should happen if there isn't a new line character in the console is that it should wait for me to enter something, to physically type in my console, whatever, and then hit the enter key. However, if there is a new line character in there, it'll just continue right on through. And let's see if I'm correct about this. So we're gonna enter 4 and see, there you go. So that tells me that there is a new line, right? Because if I had user, if I want to do this again, I'll just illustrate this for you guys. Same code. So at some point it should stop. And what will happen is it should stop right here, right? System dot. Just print an error message, skipped new line. And then I should, once it prints that, I should have to enter a new line in order to move past it. So I'm going to enter 4. So right there. So the 4 is taken, but the new line character isn't. It's just left in the console. So this line only reads that new line character. And then this line is waiting for me to enter something. So I could enter whatever I wanted. And then once it hits that new line character, which was me hitting the enter button, then it will take that entire line and continue. So there you go. Just a word of caution about using the scanner. Just be wary about when you're reading specific type of inputs. And that was only because I used nextInt. So if I used next line, it would take the entire line, but it would also take the new line character. So I would have to get rid of that in order to convert it to an integer. So it's a nice way to read specific type of formats, but remember that there's still that new line character and you still have to think about what is actually in your console. So. All right, so that was about the scanner class and a little bit about how to use that, as well as my cautionary tale on reading input and remembering that you guys have to account for the consoles, what is actually in the console input stream. So now what I want to do is I want to build my menu. So what I want is I want this program to continuously run until the user selects the option to quit. So to me, that says that I'm going to need a while loop, and a while loop with a switch function in it. So my while loop is going to continuously run, and then my switch statement is going to handle the option that the user is going to select. So, and actually what I can do real quick before I actually get to this, to the switch statements, is display all the options. So I'm going to have a static class. So a class, sorry, a static method that is going to display menu options to the user. And I want it to be static because I don't want to have to call it on an object of this class. I just want to be able to just call the, oh, and it should be public static void, sorry. I just want to be able to call this class, sorry, this method without having to call it on an instance of this class. So that's why it's static. So for my menu, I'm just going to print out a bunch of things. It's going to be menu. Let's give it some spacing. And then here are going to be, oh, and I need some options. So, and then I'm going to have, looks like I ended with 7 options. So one is going to be list all players. Don't need to capitalize that. Two is going to be add a player. 3 is going to be something I'm going to leave for you guys. There will be some really good practice, which is going to be load player list. 4 is going to be make player attack. 5 is going to be player is going to use item. 6 is going to be our kind of algorithm where we're going to find the highest roll. And then 7 is going to be to quit. Okay, so then what I want to do when I first enter the while loop is I want to display all the menu options. And like I said, I want this system to continue until the user selects quit. So to do that, I'm going to have a Boolean called quit, which I'm going to initially set to false. And I'm going to continue this loop until quit is set to true. So while not quit, so while obviously while false, or sorry, while true right now, I want to display the options, and then I want to make a switch statement where, again, I want to read the input from the user. So I want to actually, let's make a, oh, it actually should go below the menu. This will be a please enter option. So that'll display an option. And I want to, again, just like I did with this, I want to read that number in and process it. So I'm going to call this entered number. And again, that's going to be a user input.nextInt. And remember, again, I'm going to be left with that new line character, and I do not want to have to deal with that. So I'm just immediately going to flush that new line character. So probably not, maybe not the best way to do this, but it is a way, and it has been working for me. So I'm going to stick with it. And then my switch case is going to be this entered number. And so switch statements just allow me to have a list of cases that the user is going to enter in order to handle them. So instead of having a bunch of if, else if, else if, else if, else if, I can do switch, and then I'll do case. 1, and then some code, case 2, code, so on and so forth. So then I'm going to do this for every single case. And as you can see, I'm pretty organized with my programming. You don't have to be. I'm pretty, what's the nice way to say that? Stuck up with how I like things to look. So you might program a little faster than me. I hope, maybe. Anyway, okay, there we go. So then, make this bigger. What I want to do is I just want to copy all of these. So actually, I want to copy this whole thing. And I'm just going to paste these all in here one at a time. So that'll handle that case. That'll handle that case. This one's going to handle this case. Oops. This 4 is going to handle 4. 5 is going to handle 5. So I'm just filling out the switch statements just for now. And then what we'll do is we'll actually go and fill these in with code. So let's just make sure this is running nicely first before we start building on top of this. So hopefully it's running. Let's hit run, see what happens. So enter number of players. Let's go with 4. Entered 4, and there we go. So we are displayed our menu. Let's see when I enter an option. There we go. Oh, what happened? I didn't print. Oh, I just printed the menu again. Why did it do that? Oh, because obviously, right. Whoops. I need break statements. So what happened there was, I should have realized, for your switch statements, you need breaks or continues after each statement, or else it's going to execute all the statements, right? So here, that's what happened. It hit case 1, and then it hit list all players, but then it just went down the line and went through every single case. So in order to prevent that, we're just going to add a break statement after each of these. And then actually, while we're here, let's go ahead and just do this. So for a quit, what I want to do is I just want to take my Boolean, which is going to tell my while loop to quit, and I want to set that to true. So quit is going to equal true, and then break. And then this should be, and again, pretty nice IDE. So that tells me where the start of this bracket is. And I like to use this so that I can comment where I like what this final bracket is. So this is going to be the end of while loop. So that way I know if I'm here, menu, I'll call it menus successfully quit. That was, all right. All right, let's test that out. Now that we've got a correctly, hopefully correctly working version. So that number doesn't matter too much for now. I'm gonna enter a 3. Let's just go down the line. So 1, good job. 2 again. So it looks like it's all working. So I go to 5, use player item. There we go. And then testing for 7, quit. And there we go. Successfully quit. So it looks like our switch is working. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to build out each of those cases, as well as we're going to start to build out this class and implement the interface that the inner classes of player are going to use. So take a quick break and we'll get started on that. All right, so now that we have our main class somewhat fleshed out a little bit, and we are able to display some options to our user, we're going to start building our player class and the 2 moves that are going to be available to the class. And those 2 moves are going to be, I'm going to make them inner classes in this player class. And they're both going to implement an interface. So interfaces, I guess you could say they are, it's like a commonality, it's like a function that you want a class to provide. So in this case, I have a interface called action, which I'm going to I'm going to copy that and I'm going to place it in the core package. And here it's just asking me to get its name and then making sure where I'm trying to copy it to. And that's where I want to copy it to. So now, as you can see, it's an interface, doesn't have actual any code. These are the two methods that any class that implements this interface will need to provide. And as you can see, if you don't know these green comments, this is a Java doc comment and just provides some information. Obviously, I wrote this, so not a lot of information, but provides some information about what these methods should do. So this method, get turn number for an action, should return the term number, the action was performed, and then the method get move info should return the move information for this action performed. And like I said, I want to make two different actions. So I'm going to make two inner classes for player. So the first one, I think I will call attack action, and that's going to implement. No, that's why I need a class. Attack action implements action. And right away, IDE is smart and it's saying, okay, it's implementing this interface. You actually have to implement these methods, or at least at the minimum, declare them. So there you go. So all I did there was it just highlighted it and I asked it to import those, and I can show you that through this. So I'm going to also have a public class. I actually think I'll make these private. Although it doesn't matter too much, but generally, yes, you probably want your inner classes to be private, since they're really should only be used by the player class and through the player class. So a private class, I will make this use item action, and that's going to implement again action, which is my interface. So once again, if I highlight over that, it's telling me that I need to implement those methods. And this IDE is pretty nice in that anytime it doesn't recognize something, it'll give you some options for it. So I could make this an abstract class, which I don't want to do. I just want to implement those methods. So then it'll find that interface, which it found in core.action. And then it's going to highlight the ones that you need to implement in your code, and then it will bring them in for you. So pretty nice there. So that's those two classes. It's going to be attack action and use item action. And for an attack action, I'm going to need two instance variables. I'm going to make an int for obvious. I'm going to make, just to differentiate the names, attack turn number. And I'm also going to need, this is where the actual dice roll is going to take place. So attack roll. And then just like with any class, it will have a default constructor where it'll just give default values to the instance variables you have if you don't have a constructor. But I want to make my own so that I can control what these are going to be made. And I want to be passed the turn number that this action is going to take place. So for my parameter for my constructor here, I'm going to make p turn num. And then I'm going to just set this attack turn number to p turn num. And then this is where I need to make dice roll, which I will do in a minute. First, let's go ahead and do this class. So this class isn't actually going to have any dice rolling. This is just going to be an action where the player is just going to use an item. So instead of having, so I'm still implementing this interface and still going to use these methods, but instead of having an attack roll, it's just going to be a string to denote the item used. So I still need the turn number. So it's going to be item turn number. And that's an int. And then I want a string to denote the item used. And then again, I want a constructor. Come on, there we go. And then again, I'm going to need the turn number. I don't want that. I want p turn. And I also am going to need the name of the item that I'm going to use. So, and this one, no dice roll. I'm just going to set turn number to the past turn number. And again, as you can see, I'm pretty familiar with this IDE, so I'm pretty comfortable with like auto-filling, and I've gotten comfortable with it filling in for me or suggesting things. But if you're coming from a different IDE, it might take you a little bit longer to get familiar with this, so just be aware of that. So just like I said, it likes to fill for you, so it's pretty nice, makes things really faster in my opinion, and gives you some nice hints about things you can use or methods you may not know about. So there we go. So that's all I want to do for this one. And then I obviously am going to need to change these. So I want to return item turn number, and I want to return item used. Here I want to return attack turn number. And here is where potentially I could have an issue, but what I know is this move is just an attack. So instead of having some variable, some instance variable for a string, I know it's always an attack. So instead, I'm just going to always return player, or sorry, I'm just going to set it as attack. So now as you can see, these two methods are going to use differently by this class because it's implemented differently, right? So this one, a move, is a string, and I'm returning that move. Sorry, in this action, the string is going to be the item that I'm using. So in my get move info, I'm just returning whatever item was, whereas in this implementation, an action is just an attack. So I don't need a string for that. I'm just going to return the string attack whenever it asks about information about this action. All right. And then we're going to have to do the randomized dice roll. All right, so now we're going to finish implementing the dice roll for the attack action, and then finish fleshing these out. So first thing that I realize is that I should, when I make an action, I want to tell the user what item was used. So when I create this object is where I'm going to tell the user item used, and it's going to be this dot items used. So that should print out to the user whatever item was used for that action. So then same thing, I want to print out this dice roll. And to do this, to get a random number, I'm going to use the random class through Java's standard library. So again, just going to type in random. And again, smart IDE, it's asking, that little pop-up there is asking, do you mean java.util.random? And then Alt Enter will actually import that for me. So if I press Alt Enter, you didn't actually see it happen, but if I scroll to the top there, imported the random class for me. So now I'm just going to make a new random object, obviously using the keyword new, right? And then I want to set my attack roll to be and I'm going to use this method nextInt. So nextInt is going to give me a random integer within the bounds, which my bound, I'm going to make it a 20-sided die. So that'll give me a random integer from 0 to 19. But then I also want to add one to it, right? Because my die would, if it were real, would have phases 1 through 20, not 0 to 19. So, and then I want to display again that roll to the user. So roll is, and actually I'll show you guys, this is printf. So printf, if you saw from my print line, I use whenever you add a variable, use a plus symbol, and then whatever you're going to add. Printf is more C style, so it uses, gosh, I don't remember what those are called. Regardless, it uses that format specifier, and then I can also type in a new line character, and then you just fill in your values. So the first value typed here will be the first indicator in your string, and that will be attack roll. All right, and I don't know if you guys can see that, but obviously from these two methods, I have no way to be able to know what the attack roll was if I want to ask that question. So I'm also going to implement a method to get the attack roll. And I'll just return this dot attack roll. And I need parentheses there since that's a method. So, all right, there we go. And I guess we'll get to that later. So, okay, so there. So I should fully have implemented the attacks, the actions. And now I want to implement a player. So for a player, I want the player to have a name. So I'm going to give them an instance variable of a string. I'm going to call it player name. I want them to have some sort of health indicator, since I assume that would be somewhat helpful in some games. So I'll give a instance variable of an integer of health. And then I want a list of actions that this player is going to take. So I want a list. So just to make it simple, I'm going to make an array of actions. And what I can do here is I can just create an array of the implemented method. So it'll act as any class that implements this interface can be put into this array. So that way I don't have to have two arrays. I don't have to have one array for attacks, and I don't have to have a separate array for use items. I can just place every single type of action into this array. And then if I want, I can ask questions about it through this array. So it's just one area to put all of my moves into instead of having two different ones. So, and then I also need some index to where I'm going to put the next action in my action array. And then just like with the other two classes, I need a constructor. And here I'm going to have to take a name. And actually, I think that's it. Yeah, just a name. So then I'm going to set this player name equal to the past name. I'm just going to say health is going to start at, let's say 20. Then obviously index is going to be 0 since I don't have any actions yet. And then I want to make a new action array. So my actions is going to be a new action array, and we'll call it, oh, that's another thing. I can also pass in an int with the estimated number of moves. So this will say if the GM thinks, oh, we'll get through 50 moves today or whatever, they want to keep a specific amount of moves they can. So that'll just determine the size of the array, which once we get a little bit further, I'll talk about array resizing. Just remember that obviously if my array is only 5 and I try to access a 6th element, that'll throw an error. So I won't do it in this program, but when you are working with arrays, be aware that you can have the index out of bounds exceptions. So you would have to do some array resizing if you wanted to move past, or if you wanted to continue this program and you've moved past the number of moves, you have to resize this array to allow for further moves than what you originally estimated. Okay, and then we're going to need some getter methods, which getter methods are just going to get your private instance variables. I don't think we'll need the index, but we'll probably need player name and health. So we'll just call this public string get player name. And that's just going to return and then also, I think I'd want to get the entire, probably at some point, we'll probably want to get the entire list of actions from players. So let's get player actions. And that's just, I didn't need to press enter, but that's all right. You're just going to return this dot actions. And I actually probably will want to also be able to get a specific action, right? If I want to, like, let's see, in our menu, we're going to need to find the highest rule. I'm going to have to ask about a specific action performed. So I probably want some method to get a single action using an integer, which denotes the move number I made. So I'll call it pmove. And to do that, so that would just be a specific index in our array, right? Each index in the array is an action object. So to get a specific action, I would just return, oops, I need return this, the action that I'm specified. And that's fine for now, but just be aware, since I'm using this, I think it's okay, but you have to make sure that this is an actual valid position before you do it, all that. But since I'm using it, I think it's okay for now. So moving on, I think that's all we'll need for now. I think so. Okay. We'll probably need a few more things, but we'll get to them. So next, let's go ahead and we'll start connecting these two programs. We'll just do it first by adding a few players and then seeing what our program is going to do and what we're going to have to add. So take a quick break and then we'll get to that.